All right, Austin, I get asked all the time about, should I invest in Bitcoin? What do you think about Bitcoin? Is it a good investment? And I tell people all the time, no, it is not a good investment. Absolutely not. And the reason is, number one, it isn't an investment. It's a currency. And number two, the reason it's a bad investment is it goes up and down with no rational rhyme or reason. The only way you make money, in my opinion, in Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency is pure luck. Because someone like Elon Musk can just tweet something and it goes up 20% or goes down 20%. If someone can just tweet and cause something to go up or down that much, it's just ridiculous. And the purpose of cryptocurrency, in my opinion, was to have an anonymous way to send someone money. So if I wanted to send something money to you and I didn't want anyone else to know about it, I could use Bitcoin or one of the currencies to do that. And that's what I think the Bitcoin was invented for. Decentralized exchange of currency. And of course, we've seen this used in a negative way. We've seen people get hacked, and we've seen, I see you're probably disagreeing with me back here, but we've seen people get hacked. It happens almost every week, and they demand the ransom be paid in Bitcoin. When you watch a movie and they kidnap some guy's kid, the big question is always, how does the killer or the kidnapper get the money without and release the kid without them knowing? Oh, leave it under a rock, and then they go look under a rock and there's a note, and then it's go make a phone call at a phone booth. Da, 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 da. With Bitcoin, it's just send Bitcoin to this address, and it's just a long string of numbers. And nobody knows who those string of numbers belongs to unless you tell them that. You give them that information. And so that's how it's used in a negative way. The positive is I can send you money and the government doesn't have to know anything about it.
Okay, here's my position. Nothing you said matters in the long run. And here's why. When you give somebody Bitcoin in their Bitcoin wallet, they cannot turn that into cash, something they can really buy goods and services with, unless they redeem it. And because of the blockchain ledger, that person can, in theory, be tracked. And how the criminals get around this is they use Bitcoin tumblers, where they put their money into a Bitcoin account, it's washed around with everybody else's, then theirs comes out, and then that's how they wash the money. That's their money laundering. That's how they get away from being tracked via the blockchain. But the people that run these Bitcoin tumblers are starting to go to jail now. They're starting to get charged. They're starting to go to jail.
Well, I will say the pipeline people apparently got caught. When they hacked the whatever that pipeline is.
Yeah, sure.
I think those people, the FBI, actually somehow caught them.
Well, not only somehow caught them, but the whole idea about Bitcoin is more trackable than any currency in history, really. Because the whole idea of the blockchain is nobody can fake it. Nobody can molest the record to make it look like money exists that didn't exist before.
But so, where in there is an investment? Where is there an investment in that?
There isn't.
That's my point. So we agree on that point. We agree it's not an investment.
Here's what
now we disagree on the purpose.
What is the purpose of Bitcoin? You say the purpose of Bitcoin is to do covert money transactions. And some people may use this for covert transactions now, but in the future, as the government tracks the blockchain, which they will be able to do without question, as people move out of Bitcoin to other things like purchasing goods and services, the government will be able to find that without question over time. As people go to jail for Bitcoin tumblers and being involved in other types of Bitcoin fraud, this will be stopped. The whole fraud thing is kind of temporary. It's like cowboys shooting each other for gold in the past. It's just a temporary glitch. In the long run, what Bitcoin is truly designed to do is resist inflation. Why?
Now, by the way, this isn't anything a founder told you or said. No. This is your opinion of what Bitcoin is.
Yes, I don't know who Satoshi is, okay?
Yeah.
But so here's the deal with cash. As soon as a certain virus comes that I'm not supposed to talk about on YouTube, apparently, the government says, we need more stimulus. Print more money! And that's my Nancy Pelosi impersonation. But the government prints money. As the government prints money, money becomes worth less. And I know because as I pay my Italian subcontractors, and I've got even some East European subcontractors, I have to pay them more because the United States dollar is falling apart right now because the government is printing money. And so the value of cash deteriorates over time because the government keeps printing more money. They keep printing cash. Bitcoin doesn't have this problem. There's a limited number of Bitcoins in the world. There only ever will be a certain number of Bitcoins. Bitcoins are immune to inflation. So if I hold on to cash, I'm actually losing value at the rate of inflation. Let's say I took all my cash, all my X-Plane money, I saved it in $1,000 bills, and I put it under my mattress. That money would actually be deteriorating in value at the rate of inflation.
Agreed.
But if I put it all into Bitcoin, which I don't, but if I put it all into Bitcoin, then in theory, I would be inflation proof. Because Nancy Pelosi can't come along and say, I want 10,000 more Bitcoin. I'm sure she would if she could, as long as she could give it to all the people she wants to give it to, but she can't. And that is the true appeal of Bitcoin.
And so by the way, let's be clear. We're talking about the currency Bitcoin. We're not talking about Dogecoin. We're not talking about
Bitcoin.
Not what we refer to as altcoins.
I'm talking about Bitcoin. And so what Bitcoin does is, let's say it starts here. It actually does like this. But my theory is that Bitcoin, while it oscillates every time Elon Musk makes a tweet, or the government does an investigation, or a nation state says Bitcoin should be the future of the currency, or China outlaws Bitcoin mining for environmental reasons, every time one of these things happens, there's a fluctuation. But in the long run, because there are only a certain number of Bitcoins in the world, it will not be subject to inflation. So however inflation goes over time, that's what Bitcoin does over time in the long run. That is my theory on Bitcoin.
That's a very long run, because if we look at the value of Bitcoin where it was, let's say, 8 years ago versus today, I wish I had this number right now. I guess we could stop the video and look. But about 8 years ago, it was probably worth like $5.
Yep.
And it's pushing 50,000 right now. That's not 2%.
Yeah, that is correct. That's why I'm saying long run.
Like you're talking decades, apparently.
Right. Well, this is a theory. I would say that we're long run going to go with inflation in theory, not necessarily in practice. In practice, there's a few things that are going on. One, of course, everybody's speculating on Bitcoin right now. That pushes it way up. Two, when it first started, no one had heard of it, so of course it wasn't worth anything. Who would pay anything for it? And so there's these huge practical matters that drive Bitcoin price all over the place. But in theory, its design is an inflation hedge. It's cash you can keep that won't deflate as the government prints more money, because they haven't figured out how to print more Bitcoin. And they would if they could, but the government can't.
But if you want to hold on to your cash, so you're saying it's better than putting it in your mattress or a savings account.
Because those deteriorate over time as the government prints more money.
Because they don't keep up with inflation.
Yep.
But this is still risky, right?
It depends on how long your time frame is. In theory, if you say, Bitcoin's great, I'm going to buy it, and you buy it right here, and then China investigates Bitcoin mining and goes down, it's like, oh, Bitcoin's terrible, I'm going to sell it, it's terrible. You will lose a boatload of money. You will not make 2% over time. But if Bitcoin functions as designed, which is to not deflate over time due to inflation because people aren't printing more Bitcoin, then if that theory applies, Bitcoin will simply in the long run follow inflation. Now I've got
So you're saying that one of the smartest things the inventor of Bitcoin did was say that there's going to be a finite number. You can't make more of it. Unlike money, where you can just print.
Unfortunately, it's not quite that simple, because sometimes people lose Bitcoin.
Well, that's true, yeah. So someone forgets their password, that Bitcoin's gone forever.
And as the human population increases, it might be nice if there were more Bitcoins so each person could have the same amount.
Well, is that what altcoins are for then, you think?
Is what now?
Altcoins, like Dogecoin and...
I don't know what all of their projected profiles are and the number of coins they're going to put in the market, so I can't say that. But I will say that the idea of Bitcoin is there can't be more of them, so it resists inflation. Now, let's look at another.
I would argue, by the way, you don't need more Bitcoin as you get more people
because you can always
on the
have
planet.
1,000th of it or a millionth
Yeah,
of it.
you can have. You can have. I want to buy a Whopper, so I'm going to spend 0.000000001 Bitcoin on a Whopper.
All right, let me tell you why this is a little bit damaging economically. Let's say that the thing that Satoshi envisioned, that I believe he envisioned, happens. That there's no inflation. And in fact, there's more people on Earth. People lose Bitcoin, right? Because they lose their wallets. So over time, there's less and less Bitcoin available to people in the world because people lose their wallets. And less Bitcoin per person available because there's more people. At that point, Bitcoin can go way up in value, right? Because there's not as many of them. And so if Bitcoin is what we use as a substitute for cash in the future, then Bitcoin's going to skyrocket. It's going to go way up. Simply because people lose their wallets and there's more people. So of course, Bitcoin, each one of us is going to have less Bitcoin available to us. And if we store all of our cash in Bitcoin, then each Bitcoin must be worth more. There's no denying it. Here's the economic problem with that. Let's say we know that Bitcoin is going to keep going up. And let's say I've got $100,000 in Bitcoin. And I'm like, sure, that Bitcoin's going to go up. I'm like, oh yeah, people are going to lose their wallets, but I won't lose my wallet. My $100,000 in Bitcoin, it's really going to increase. I got my greed going on, you know? And then let's say I'm going to make somebody, you come to me. I'm like, Austin, you switch from X-Plane, shipping CDs to all digital. And Amazon is undercutting me. I need a loan to really grow my business. I'm not saying you would do that, but let's say that happened. And I'm like, oh, why would I loan you money? I can make all this money with Bitcoin because there's not inflation, there's deflation. Since there's deflation, what is the smartest thing I can do with my money? Not spend it. Hoard it like the dragon in the Lord of the Rings, or that filthy little creature in the Lord of the Rings that hoards money. In other words, if there is deflation, not inflation, then what that means is a dollar becomes worth more every day than the day before. And if we know our dollars are going to be worth more every day than the day before, we'll never spend them. So Bitcoin may actually be damaging economically if it causes you to not spend cash.
I agree with your theory that that's a possibility. That's a definite possibility that could happen. So what I will say is, what I'll disagree with, or maybe yet we're agreeing here, is most people haven't come to that realization yet. And so it's not happening yet. It hasn't happened yet. And my answer still stays the same. Bitcoin isn't an investment. You shouldn't invest in it.
And why isn't Bitcoin an investment?
Because it's a currency.
Let me give you a different answer. So let's just say hypothetically you were to come to me and say, Austin, I needed to, and you're not, of course, he's not. But let's just say you were to come to me and say, I need $10,000, business loan. Then when I give you that 10 grand, you're going to couple that with your energy, your expertise, your experience, your good UPS shipping rates, everything else you've got, and you're going to be able to pay me back more because you're going to mix my money with your creativity and work and sweat and pop out something even better than existed before. There was no X-Force PC. It didn't exist until you come along and made it happen. But what if, so that's what an investment is. An investment is starting a business to make something that didn't exist before. That's an investment. Bitcoin ain't that. With Bitcoin, there is no,
it's a speculation.
Money plus sweat equals something. Money plus sweat equals something better. That's an investment. Bitcoin's not an investment. It's
I say
trading.
Bitcoin is a speculation.
Okay.
Nothing more.
Yeah, well, you could say the same thing about venture capital, though. Here's the deal. Yeah, you could say venture capital. So
but you diversify in your venture capital, right? You put some in. You put some in risky stuff, and some in stuff is solid.
I've done venture capital in companies before they went public.
But it's also money that you could live without, like if you lost it.
All that's true. But the fundamental here isn't whether we call it speculation. The fundamental isn't whether I'm diversified. The fundamental isn't whether it's risky. The fundamental to me is when I gave Proterra and other companies like that money, I knew, all right, I'm going to give you some money. You're going to combine your expertise. And that's going to result in more value than either of us has on our own. Bitcoin doesn't have that. So I wouldn't be too quick to automatically say no. I'll say I'm not doing it, but I have completely different reasons for not doing it. We haven't even gone into that yet. Why do you think I am not currently invested in Bitcoin? And I'll give you a hint. I drive a Tesla. I'm working with an electric airplane company to end pollution in aviation, at least in some segments. Why don't I invest in Bitcoin?
Well, probably because of the way it's mined,
Which
I would
is?
guess. Using a lot of electricity.
And electricity doesn't come from nothing. Bitcoin is
Coal,
an environmental
generally.
disaster. In Russia, they fired up a frickin' coal power plant to run Bitcoin mines. Now, the Bitcoin miners, they'll lie to you. They will lie through their teeth. They'll say, oh no, Bitcoin's clean. We just use clean energy. And they'll like cherry pick some cases where they found clean energy, telling a lie of emission, completely ignoring all the dirty energy. They'll lie through a lie of emission. They'll lie, and I've heard them lie. And they'll say things like, oh, well, when oil is produced, there's the flare. You know, the flare, that extra little bit of oil they burn off. And then we hooked up a generator to that flare. So we're capturing that energy. So there's no real cost because we're capturing energy that otherwise would have been wasted. They're lying again. It's still extremely environmental damaging. And the oil companies should be capturing that flare
They're lying
to run their oil facility or fill their...
to make this go up. That's why they're lying.
Yeah, maybe they probably are. They're probably lying to increase their green line. What they want, of course, is that. That's what they want. But they don't deserve it. They don't deserve it because they're not giving a real investment where sweat is being combined with money to make something better. All they're trying to do is find a way to make money for nothing. And they're lying to you. They're lying to you to get it through the lie of emission, where they just forget the environmental damage that is associated with Bitcoin. And here's what gets fascinating to me. Bitcoin does environmental damage because it's designed to. When you Bitcoin mine, you're doing this incredibly difficult math problem, right? Now let's say you're the National Oceanic Administration. You're doing incredibly difficult math problems to see where the typhoon is going to hit Florida, right? All math, all this math. But if you're doing this to mine Bitcoin, you're doing all these incredibly difficult math problems to do another difficult math problem, plus collect, you know, a little bit that takes you from here to here.
And let's be clear, we realize most people at this time are mining Ethereum. Okay, we do know that. So all the people that are yelling at their screens right now saying,
let them yell.
You're not mining Bitcoin, you're mining Ethereum. We know that.
No, Ethereum uses a lot less money than energy than Bitcoin, doesn't it, per transaction?
I don't think anybody can even mine Bitcoin anymore. I think it's all been mined. What most people most people do is they mine Ethereum and they convert it to Bitcoin because Bitcoin is probably the most stable coin.
Stable. You see, they're trying to get closer to that red line to just offset inflation. That's stability. That's the stability people are looking for. So I think Bitcoin is not going to do well in the long run, though, because it's inherently inefficient. It uses more energy and does more environmental damage to mine. And if anybody watches a video after this where somebody says Bitcoin doesn't use more energy to mine, those people are lying. They're lying through a lie of omission. And they'll cherry pick their little facts, just like the media always does, right? The media, step one, decide what your agenda is. Step two, cherry pick facts to rationalize it.
Oh, yeah.
That's how the media works. And that's how the Bitcoin zealots work as well. Step one, I want Bitcoin to do well because I'm anti-government or whatever it is. Hell, I'm anti-government. Nothing wrong with being anti-government. I'm libertarian. But first they decide what they want, then they rationalize or cherry pick facts to support the argument that they already started off with. They get it precisely backwards, right? Yeah. That's like one of the great evils of our time. The great evil of our time, or one of the great evils of our time, is you can cherry pick enough facts to justify anything. So first you decide what you want to do to benefit yourself, then you just cherry pick the facts to support the agenda. That's like the evil, evil of our time.
It's like going to court and only listening to the prosecution.
Right.
And never hearing what the defense has to say. And you'd be like, oh gosh, the guy is so guilty.
Right. And you will see the same thing with Bitcoin where they cherry pick facts to say that Bitcoin is the future. And they will ignore the absolute environmental damage. Environmental damage done absolutely from firing up a coal plant in Russia. And they'll say, oh, it's hydroelectric. Hydroelectric is clean. Is it? Is hydroelectric clean? Did you read about the orca whales? where their babies keep starving. The reason they're starving right now in Oregon is because the hydroelectric dams are cutting off the flow of salmon to the ocean, and so they can't eat anymore, and they're pushing the corpses of their children.
I know
to
in
the water.
some cases they've created like
salmon runs. Salmon runs.
Yeah.
Don't know how well they work. Don't know how often they happen. But I do know that a hydroelectric dam is blocking the flow of salmon that is causing these orcas to have their children starve to death. And I recall reading they had some Republicans on like the Power Commission voting whether to take these dams down. Like, well, the ratepayers wouldn't want to have to pay another 5% on their power bill. And, you know, when I hear someone say, oh, I don't want to pay more than 5% on my power bill, so we're going to have someone's children starve while they're... And as far as me, there's very little difference between a human and an orca whale. I'm one of those people, I see very little difference between human and self-aware animals. Very, very little difference. And
yeah, you're a little more animal than me.
Yeah, absolutely. I am, and unapologetically so. But
I don't like to see a species go extinct. I don't like to see a species endangered. Yeah. But I don't see an orca as equal to a human.
Interesting.
So
okay.
I'm on your side.
Have you seen the documentary Blackfish?
I don't think so.
Do you ever watch documentaries?
Oh, all the time, yeah.
Well, then make Blackfish the next one you watch. Okay. You will see how these animals behave. Now, another thing to point out, orcas will also eat sharks alive, rip them to pieces. Orcas will remove the livers from sharks because the liver is like their favorite part to eat. So it's, anyway. Funny little thing. They're very smart, much smarter than you might think. But so how does this relate to Bitcoin? Oh yes, they'll say, oh, Bitcoin's clean because we get it from damming from hydroelectric. No, when you dam a river and block the flow of wildlife, block the flow of food. I mean, imagine a salmon for millennia, maybe longer than millennia. They've swum up and down this river for their, they go here, they have their children, they come back, they've had this, and then some humans like, no, there's a bit of a concrete wall there. And after millennia, they're coming and bumping into a concrete wall that's there, and they can't understand why, but it's messing up everything they've evolved to ever do.
All right.
All right, so Bitcoin. We're not done talking about Bitcoin yet. There's something else I want to say about Bitcoin. Okay. So Bitcoin is designed to be a hedge against inflation. How are people going to operate money in the future? In the future, what's our financial situation going to be compared to what it is today?
Well, we've got to find a way that you can use something similar to a credit card, but you can be sure that the person using it is the person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Identity protection. Yep.
So I don't know what that's going to, if that's going to be a fingerprint, but somebody will find a way around that.
Yeah.
Who knows what that's going to be? But that's the biggest problem we have today with financial fraud is identity fraud, and that's someone's taking someone's credit card and using it and so forth.
Right. Let's say that identity fraud.
But we would eventually tie that to a Bitcoin. You can get Bitcoin cards now.
Yeah. Okay, let's say in the future that we either solve identity with face scans, voice recognition, passwords, or we don't, it's just an ongoing problem forever. Either way, here is the future that I think is going to happen. Okay, so let me try and act like a normal person for a moment here, all right? And that's an act I cannot pull off for very long, but let me try, okay? Let's say I'm a normal person 20 years in the future. I'm going to pick a number. And let's say I do a job for a month, and it's time for me to get my monthly pay. Here's my theory. My paycheck will arrive into my account, which is accessed by my phone. And my phone, it verifies my identity. It knows my face, my, retinal, maybe my fingerprint, my password, maybe a combination of those things. And so let's just say my phone kind of knows who I am one way or another. Maybe it's implanted inside my brain, right? Elon Musk is working on that with Neuralink. So maybe it is inside me, which way the identity protection might actually be pretty good. But, so let's say my paycheck arrives. Here's my theory. I will have a basically frictionless way to do anything I want without money. When I put it that way, it sounds pretty obvious, doesn't it? Of course we're going to have a frictionless way to do whatever we want with money in the future. How could we not? It's like, it sounds so obvious when I say it. What do I want to do with my money? My paycheck comes in, boop, right, press one button, there we go. Paid the mortgage for the month. Press the button again, fingerprint, whatever it is, boom, there's my power bill. All right, I got $500 left, $1,000 left. What do? Oh, there's a Kickstarter. This looks good. Let me give this a try. The reputation of this Kickstarter person is pretty good. 75% of the things they've done in the past actually worked, and they returned the investment to the investor. Oh, I'm going to do this Kickstarter.
So suddenly you're a small venture capitalist.
Exactly. Oh, well, look at this. Apple Computer. Looks like they're on the ragged edge of bankruptcy. I've seen that coming for a while. Maybe I should get this Elon Co. instead. They're the greatest new operating system. Let me invest in them. So in other words, everybody will have the ability to do what they want with their money without friction and with a fee of like 0.0001% or something like that. And so the moment my pay comes in, I can invest it maybe in venture capital, like a Kickstarter type deal, maybe in an existing company like Apple or Google or Amazon, a big company. Maybe I wanted the speculation with the stock and buy what is almost certainly the wrong stock, buy some stocks trying to make money, which you will not work pursuant to the discussion I had on investing over at my channel, at Austin's channel. Whatever multiplies your money the most, that's where it's going to go. How do you multiply money? Do you have it sitting in Bitcoin, which is designed to not go up or down? That's what it's designed for, to just resist inflation? Or do you want it to go to somebody who will take the money, do something good with it, and return more because that money enabled them to turn labor into value?
See, I don't think you're acting like a normal person.
Explain.
Because normal people don't think that way. That's how smart people think.
I believe that in the future, when anyone can do anything they want with their money, with their phone...
Can they buy lottery tickets like that?
Sure. And the stupid ones will. The stupid ones will buy the lottery tickets. But the smarter people will ask the question, how do I maximize my return on investment? And I believe that nature declares that the way to maximize the value of a dollar is to combine it with something else. Ingenuity, thought, sweat, the next big thing, a new idea. To then use the money that you got to enable you to do a job you could not otherwise have done. And so new value is brought into the market, and that's what then explodes.
See, I think people aren't that smart.
My grandmother gave me $5,000 to start Explain. Explain was
you're smart.
$5,000. Well, I'm not the only smart person. I'm not that smart.
No, I'm just saying I agree. There's plenty of people smarter than me too, but I just think the majority of people, when given too much control and access to their money, that so easily push buttons like you're talking about, will push the wrong buttons.
And they'll be instantly
bankrupt. And how am I going to buy groceries now?
Okay, I believe that will happen. But does that mean that no one is going to come out with a way for you to frictionlessly invest your own money whenever and however you want?
Yeah, I think that'll still happen.
Exactly.
I just don't think it's going to be as positive as you think it's going to be.
Okay.
It'll be very positive for the smart people.
Okay, but not so much for... Okay, well, a fool and his money are soon parted.
Yes.
I don't think that's going to be... For the first time ever, that'll happen in 20 years.
Right. Yeah.
So, all right, so how about this then? In the future, when the smart people are combining their money with ingenuity to make more money, aka what I would call venture capital investing, and the dumb people are buying lottery tickets, how many people are going to want to just have their money sitting in cash doing nothing, which is what Bitcoin, I believe, is cash 2.0. How many people are just going to want to have their money
much less
in cash?
likely to want to do that, yeah.
In other words, in the future, I don't think there's going to be as much cash. Because cash, by its definition, is money that is doing nothing. That's like the definition of cash, sitting there doing nothing. Well, when everyone has the ability to do anything they want with their money, with their phone, how many people are going to choose, I'm going to do nothing. I'm just letting it sit in cash.
Oh, they're going to do something. And I guess that's good for the economy. Even if you're doing stupid things with your money, it still stimulates the economy.
And Bitcoin is basically a cash that resists inflation. It's not, the money in Bitcoin is not really working for you. And since it's not working for you, it's not the type of thing you're going to want to stay invested in.
And let's close this.
The future of money is not cash, which is doing nothing. The future of money is investment, where you're doing something. And that future will exist because frictionless ways to move money with identity verification attached to your phone are inevitable. That is my theory.
All right, we'll wrap it up and say that if you've got money to invest, you're probably better off investing in the stock market, not Bitcoin.
Index fund. Get an index fund and wait a long time. When you get an index fund, you're tracking a lot of stocks. When you're tracking a lot of stocks, you won't worry if it goes down because you know it'll come back up. The aggregate will come back up over time. And if you get an index fund, you're not paying very many investment fees. Get an index fund, hold on to it for a long time. Don't sell it when it goes down. That's the way to reliably make money in the stock market.
There's a separate video on that. I'll link that in the video description so you can see the full discussion on index funds.
Okay, see ya.